Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Friday edition of Office Hours. I'm Matthew Groves, and I'm happy to be here with you. I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy that Surly Dev is here. And speaking of, I want to try a new little plugin thing I got for Twitch. Let's see if this works. Okay. Let's see. Show this message. There we go. Look at that. I can now highlight chat messages right there in the feed with this featured.chat thing. I saw this on C# Fritz's channel when I was raiding on Tuesday, and I thought that's going to be pretty cool. I can show some messages on there, and it looks like it's just going to stay up indefinitely. Okay, let's like delete it, I guess. I don't really want to stay up there forever. How do we get rid of this? Oh, if I click on that, there we go. Oh, I can add you as an admin on there. There, I cleared it. So I can add you as an admin on the feature chat. I think I did, if I'm not mistaken. I gave permissions to all the mods. So maybe you can log in and try it since you're familiar with featured.chat. Let me just double check here. My administrators. Oh, wait. Yeah, I think you're there. So all my mods are there. So Surly Dev and TBD Gamer and Coral and Calvin, etc. When you get back upstairs, okay? Hey, Gamelor, what's going on? Let's see if we can do this with Gamelor too. There we go. Gamelor, I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. How are you doing? How are you both doing on this fine Friday? You're both, I believe, in European time zone, so you're pretty close to the weekend. Hope you're having a great Friday. We're going to get into some interesting stuff today. And then on to building this list article feature, which maybe we can get to. You leave in about 45 minutes. All right. Well, congratulations on being so close to the weekend. My weekends now that school started consists of, generally speaking, football games for the marching band, competitions and parades on Saturdays. So that's what I'm going to be doing this weekend. In fact, there's a big parade here in Grove City called Arts in the Alley. It's just a big art festival here in Grove City, and there's a parade that kicks it off tomorrow morning, last year was an extraordinarily long parade. But my daughter's in a marching band for the school, and she will be in that parade again. My son is got a baseball game that morning, so I can get rid of Gamblor's message here. He's got a baseball game tomorrow. So that's what I've got. A busy, busy morning on Saturday. Hopefully some relaxing time Saturday afternoon. Plan to do some yard work today. No home football game. So that's what I've got going on. Boring dad stuff on this weekend. But today, let's talk about this this agenda here. So C# Advent is still going on. So can I highlight my own messages? Sign-ups are still going on, by the way, is what I mean by that. Looks like I can't highlight my own messages. Anyway, there's 16 spots left open right now if you want to sign up. I know Gamlor is already in. Thank you for that, Gamlor. But those spots go pretty quickly. I know it's early in the season to think about Christmas and Advent, but I got some ambitious plans this year, so I want to get those signups in as soon as possible and give people a lot of time to think about what they're going to be, what they're going to be working on. So check that out, csadvent.christmas. The next thing is NoSQL Migrator bug fix. So I don't have this prepared on my Visual Studio, unfortunately. So let's take a second. Need to load up Visual Studio here. I probably wrote this one in Writer. It'd been faster. Too late now. Ship has sailed. But if you remember, maybe you don't remember, but Tuesday, I think it was, I was having some issues with my tests. They were failing because index was not created that the test needed. And so what I realized was that I was doing in the NoSQL Migrator project, which is what I use to create collections and scopes and indexes and so on. But that's the bug that I ran into. So Gamlore does like a last minute Hail Mary topic. Gamlore, you always come up with something interesting, and usually you throw in some of those interesting stick figure drawings as well, which I've enjoyed as far back as the DB40 days. So yeah, your posts don't ever come across to me like they're last minute Hail Mary, kind of low quality posts. Not at all. They're always very good, very entertaining and interesting. So thank you for those. So this is what I was working on. This is one part of the NoSQL Migrator project. This is actually the command that creates indexes. So all this stuff gets built by the Fluent interface: index name, scope name, collection name, the fields that are indexed, etc., etc. Still some breakpoints in here. This is actually the code that constructs the SQL++ to create index. There's other ways to create indexes than SQL++ directly, but I think this gives me the most flexibility. Anyway, what I had here in verify create index was, and I may have done this on the stream, I don't remember, but I had poly in here. Poly is like a retry policy type of .NET library, and I still have poly in this project, but it was a bad fit here, because what it would do, it would actually execute the index, and poly would just keep retrying if there was some sort of timeout, which is fine, but that's not really what I intended it for it to do. What I wanted to do is wait to see if the index was created. So what I actually needed to do that is this right here, watch indexes async. So this is part of the .NET API. If you give it a bucket name and a list of indexes, it will basically just hang out and wait for those indexes to be up and running online, which is important for this particular tool because the very next step could involve querying that using that index, or, as in my case, integration tests that are going to run queries against that index. So those could run very, very quickly, almost immediately. So it's a pretty weird use case in general, right? Usually when you create an index in production, it's not like you're going to use it like the next microsecond, right? There's going to be some time for it to get up and online, no big deal. But in my case, it has to be up and running right away. So that's why I throw this watch indexes async in there. That seemed to fix the issue. What I was also frustrated by when I was trying to fix this is I was running it against my local Docker instance of Couchbase, which normally is fine, but for whatever reason, and maybe because I was messing around with indexes so much and just doing all kinds of crazy things, is that the CPU was pegged to like 300% or something. So this really made it weird, like in the UI wasn't really responding and the index wasn't getting created. It was very, very strange. So I don't know what happened there with Docker, but I went ahead and just restarted it and it worked fine. So clearly that's why Kubernetes exists, because if those Docker containers get out of control, Kubernetes can just go ahead and reboot them or spin up a new one. So I had fixed that, and I actually had done a deploy, and let me just show you this because it's pretty cool. I'm kind of proud of it, even though it's not really my personal work. But I've gotten a couple open source contributions to this project now, which always makes me feel good. Even though it's still in like, do I have zoom it here? Zoom it. Even though it's like 0.05 alpha, as I'm considering the version. I'm not anywhere close to a release yet. I don't feel comfortable releasing it just yet. Although it's actually pretty robust from the limited use I've dogfooded with it. But check this out right here. Check out this cool icon and nicely designed piece of text. Is this a question? What do you mean, is this a question? Can Matthew answer this? Oh, you're trying to test. Oh, I get it. You're trying to test the featured chat. Yeah, so anyway, I'm quite proud of that. This was a contribution from an open source just solicitation. I just created an issue that said, good first issue, need help. And someone came along and did it, which is great. And furthermore, I released a new NuGet package with 005 Alpha, which also uses these same cool icons and font, and this is just the README, so uses all that cool stuff. So did it work, Surly Dev? I didn't see anything come up. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but did those show up on the feed or on the stream over there? Hey, that works. Cool. All right. Well, there you go, Surly Dev. So that's great. If you're going to stand by and have featured chat open, if you see someone that has a, you didn't bring it on the stream, but did there. Okay. Yeah, great. So if you see someone that has an interesting comment or question, even just marginally interesting, go ahead and pop it up there. It's totally fine. I don't mind at all. You know, I'm definitely not opposed to interruptions and going off on tangents. So that's cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So what I wanted to talk about next, and you already see it on the screen here, a bit of a spoiler, is this list article endpoint. So if you remember, on Tuesday, I think it was, I was working on a big query. Yeah, there you go. Working on a big query to, well, I say big, it's not that big. It just looks kind of long because I've formatted it this way. But this is going to be the query that returns a list of articles based on paging and some optional criteria, pulling in the author and the following and the favorited statuses. So it has to pull in information from 4 different collections, similar to 4 different tables in Relational World, but 4 different collections. So that's why there's one join to this collection, and then I've got 3 other joins to favorites, follows, and again favorites to pull in for potential filtering. This is optional. So, but this is the query I had worked on, and I think this should still work. Oh, I'm not connected. So let's do a quick connection to the local here and run this. And there, no index. I haven't created the index for it yet. So I'll get to that. But the question was, basically, I have 2 options here. One is a pure SQL approach, where this is the query and this returns the results, and map those to the view models and we're done, right? So this query does execute, just need an index, but this does execute and does return all the information. The second option is, what if I cut off all these right here and just select the slug? So I still have to do the joins and the filtering, can't get away from that, but just select the slug and not all this information, and then use that slug to do key value lookups to populate everything else. So all these fields, the favoriting, the embedded author, and the following. Which would be the faster approach, I guess, is the question. But then we've got a further issue of which option should I go with. So Gamlord has got a weird issue recently. Bought a used PC, ran fine for like 1 minute, and then got dog slow. Okay, so looking at the task manager, I've noticed that when it's slow, the CPU runs at 0.2 gigahertz, which is clearly not full speed, I'm assuming, unless this is a very old used PC. And every few minutes, it shortly went back to normal and then back to sadness. Okay. Driver updates, Windows reinstall, BIOS latest version, all didn't help. This is kind of sounding to me like a hardware issue. Or there's like a mouse nest or something in the box. On Linux, it seemed fine. Didn't test long enough. Okay, maybe not a hardware issue. Maybe it didn't test long enough, but it seemed fine on Linux. All right. This is an interesting story here. I hope there's a good resolution. So it was some weird CPU scaling issue, but temperature all looked fine on the CPU. Okay. I'll bring up the benchmarks here while he's got this story going. Scaling issue. All right. So after some debugging, I ran a tool called Throttle Stop, and that reported that there is a BD ProChot flag set, which basically means some component reports it's too hot, therefore the CPU goes in emergency slowdown. Okay, makes sense. I don't know what BD ProChot means. BD ProChot. So that's set possibly just on Windows for some reason, but okay. Can you do anything to turn that flag? Well, I mean, it's a flag set by some sort of sensor, I assume. Typically, my fix is in software. You can configure CPU to ignore that flag. Okay. What does BD ProChop? Okay, so here's throttle stop. Disabling BD ProChot. Probably some motherboard issue underneath, like faulty temp sensor. Okay. So you're kind of taking a risk there, Gamlor, in that if you assume the temp sensor is faulty, probably good, but then if you start running, Adobe Premiere or something, potentially could fry your computer. Okay, I don't know. So that's interesting. Okay, BD ProChot, good to know. And throttle stop. It's a used PC, just needs to run some games. All right. So it's not, games can be quite demanding on processor too. So I decided I was going to set up a benchmark to just kind of get a baseline, see which is the faster approach. This is only a part of the solution, of course. So a bunch of, this is a benchmark.net, so you have global setup. This runs before each benchmark. So connecting to the cluster and getting all these dependencies set up. I create a current user to simulate a logged in user. I want a list of author names. I'm generating a bunch of test data and some random. This is a copy and paste of a lot of the same stuff in the ASP.NET project, just to get Mediator up and running, because I need Mediator to do one of the key value plus SQL approach. And then just a smoke test, which is really helpful with benchmarks, by the way. You don't have to wait until the benchmarks are all run to get the error message. And then create a few thousand articles. So 1,000 articles, 100 authors. I thought would be a decent way to start this. Create some test data, keep track of the authors, add some random followers in the process, create some articles as well. That's probably, no, I don't know. So anyway, then the benchmark is, okay, here's the SQL. It doesn't have any of the additional filtering stuff. It's just a baseline. Give me 20, and then I run that query and display the results. All right. The other approach is SQL plus key value. So I run the stripped down version with just returning slug. It still has all these joins and filters. Run that query, get the results. Then for each result, I fire off requests to get article requests, which is what the application does when I do a simple get. Now I'm doing a get 50 times to populate this view and then return that response. You can ignore, oh no, so I ran these, and I ran them with a variety of indexes as a benchmark. So this is what the results are. So zoom in a little bit. So this is pure SQL, no key value lookups. This is SQL with just the slug plus key value lookups. This is the index I used, which was just a really simple index on just the author username. So if we go look at this query, author username is right here. No, not this one, but I think it's actually indexing it, yeah, on this join right here, right? So it has to index, it suggested an index to this field to speed things up. So that's the index I used, and then here are the results. So pure SQL, a little slower, but we're talking 100 milliseconds, not that big a deal. Difference between the two approaches. Okay, so at this point I'm like, they're both kind of roughly the same. And also keep in mind we're using a single node Couchbase server. There's no more optimization than that. There are some things we could do. So, and this is also 50 iterations, and it's a relatively small amount of data. So keep all that in mind, that there's lots of different changes we could do to the workload and the actual configuration of the cluster. So by all means, don't assume this is proving one thing or the other. I'm just kind of looking at this to get a sense of which direction I should go. Okay, the next thing I did was I created a covering index. So this was the index advisor giving me a covering index. And this means that and I ran a covering index on the pure SQL query. So it's covering a lot of fields here. I was hoping this was a word wrap, but it's covering all these fields and calculated fields. So tag list, everything that's being returned is being made part of the index. Now, what does that mean? A covering index means that hopefully you don't have to make a call to the underlying key value. You can just pull that data right from the index. So again, I ran these pure SQL approach with the full covering index, 909. So faster than up here, but still way slower than SQL plus key value. And SQL plus key value actually improved its performance. I assume that's because it is selecting just the slug, which is part of the covering index. So some performance there. Okay, the next one is the most stark. So this is with the advice of the query being optimized, the advice of the query applying to just the select slug. And so you can see this is a very much smaller index. So author username, of course, the missing, the article key, and then the slug. With this in mind, kind of optimized for SQL plus KV, the query or the total time got down to 250 milliseconds. And pure SQL shot way up to 1200 milliseconds. So that's a pretty huge difference in comparing those. And this is by far the best performance of the three. So with that in mind, what approach should I take? Now, if we're going pure performance, I think there are some other things we could tweak to get the performance even better than this 250 milliseconds. All right. But the problem with this approach is, if we go back and look at the benchmark, this is a more complex approach. So I still have to run a SQL query, and then I have to take that and look up, make a request to Mediator to get that article. So it requires kind of two movements, I guess. So looking at it here, it's not really that complex, but in the application, this could be a lot more complicated than it looks here. So with that in mind, I think, and I'd love to hear your opinions on this, my approach is going to be the one that's optimized for developer experience, which is use pure SQL. Just that. I think that in the long run, this is probably an easier, a more approachable way to build this endpoint because it's all just in SQL. Both approaches are pretty resilient to change, I think. If I added a new field to article, that's just a new, another field to the SQL query. And if I had a new field to article, I would be updating the other endpoints, which means that this will be updated as well, because it uses the handlers behind other endpoints. So I think both are pretty resilient to change. But I think I want to go with pure SQL just because it's going to be easier to write and understand, hopefully, right? There is more complexity here that I'm not showing. It's going to apply to both either way, which is the fact that depending on what filters the consumer wants, this query is going to look different. It's going to be, these are going to be missing or added or some combination. This one would be optional, so it's also going to be there or not there. These need parameterized, things like that. So there's a lot of complexity to this. That's going to be the case either way. So I think we'll just stick to the SQL-only approach. But this is definitely something that I want to bring up when I get to the point of doing an architectural review of the whole thing and building kind of that playbook out. This is one option. There are other options. And These are the trade-offs. This is better for, this is easier to understand and read and write. This one is better for pure performance, if you really need to squeeze every last drop of performance out of this method. All right, so that is what I'm going to do. But I'm going to document this for sure, so that I remember later why I did that. So let's get on with building it. Let's just write some code. We're 25 minutes in, haven't written any code. So there are the reports. We'll keep those in the project for now, but let's get on with writing this endpoint. So let's start with a endpoint here. This controller is getting kind of long, huh? This does not need to be authorized. Where is my, let me start this up here. My project board. Okay, so list articles. This is a get endpoint, get API articles. So HTTP get, and route is API articles. Public async task iaction result. Get all, well, get articles, I guess, articles. Okay, now that does need to have an object associated with it. So let me go back to this here. So these are all things that are going to be added to the URL. All right. So with that in mind, this will be from query. Is that right? Yep, from query. And I'm going to say article filter view model. I don't know. What would you call this? A kind of a collection of filter variables, optional filter variables. Article filter options model, maybe? It's not really a view model, it's not really an edit model. It's just kind of a collection of filters, I don't know. Open for other names. So this is going to go into good morning, Napalm, welcome. Check this out, Napalm. We're doing something cool. Look at that, you're on the screen. And your smiling face as well. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us today. It's a new thing, featured.chat. It's a new plugin, kind of, not really plugin, but a new Twitch thing that I've added to the stream. Yes, stream quality bar raised. Yes, so fancy. I've got some other plugins that no one ever seems to use. There's, I've got, you've seen the emote wall. There's a Giphy plugin, Giphy. I think if you scroll down, or maybe there's a button here on the screen somewhere, you can use that. There's also a Say It Live, which I think you can, I don't know really how it's different than chat, but you can like get messages to show up on the screen. No one's used them yet, so I'm not sure that they're particularly useful, but they're out there. Okay, so view model. This is going to be an article filter. Hey, there we go. There's the GIF. There's old Chuck Norris himself. So there you go. Cool. Glad that works. That's the first time anyone's used it, as far as I know. Okay, so here is the endpoint. The only thing I need is the logged in user. That is only if, this doesn't seem to be used here. Why don't I use that here and here? Do some Boy Scout rule while we're here. Okay, it's optional, right? Yes, so right here is kind of what I'm doing. Similar thing. Like that. Yes, that could be refactored at some point. But anyway, this is when you're getting all articles, you could be an anonymous public user, you could be logged in, and that's going to make the difference in what information is returned, right? It's going to show you who you're following, what you favorited, that sort of stuff. So we need all that. So we need to a request. Let's just call this get articles request equals new get articles request. Okay, and that's going to need to be a over in handler. Let's create a new file for it. Get articles request, which is I request. Get articles response, which I haven't created yet either, but there we go. So this is the standard mediator stuff. And what I'll need to do is I'll need to pass in some values for that. I could just pass in username and filter. It's probably good enough, right? Yep, okay. Okay, and then get the response. So get articles response equals await mediator send get articles request. There we go. And what's actually returned is multiple articles in that articles wrapper. So again, it's going to be something like return okay new articles equals get articles response dot articles view, something like that. There may also be some other things returned. So if get articles response, let's say, I'm not sure what validation errors would be, but there might be some. We'll figure that out. Where's the, can I copy that from up here? Yeah. Get articles response. If there's any validation errors, go ahead and return those. Let's go ahead and add this property here, which I think is list of validation failures. I think that's right. Yes, okay. I got it. I remembered it. Articles view, which is going to be a list of article view, probably. Yeah, it is so fancy. Yes, so that actually another fancy thing about this is I've given access to my moderators to display these highlight various chat messages. And so that one was not done by me. That was done by a moderator. So I'm sure the novelty of this will wear off, but it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see that sort of thing. It just looks more professional when it's up there, right? Okay, what other things might happen to go wrong with this kind of endpoint? So we're listing all articles. Oh no, it won't wear off. Yeah, that's right. It is the little things. It is the little things. Let's see. I don't know what else could fail there. What in general, what are the errors? So unauthorized, that can't be possible here. Forbidden, don't think so. Not found. I suppose it's possible if there is no articles returned, but I think an empty array would probably be fine too. If there's any other problems, I guess we can just say if there's any other issues, return a 422, but I'm not sure what that would be. So I mean, this is going to be pretty trying to be as foolproof as possible, right? We don't, any sort of input that comes in, unless it's like malicious, you want to try to process it as best as possible. So I think that's all I need is the username, the actual filter, which I haven't created anything yet, process validation errors, and then return articles view. Okay, so I think, hey, okay, we're really pushing the C# Advent. I think Surly Dev pinned that, right? Maybe he didn't. I don't remember. I thought I saw a pinned message up there. But yeah, check out csadvent.christmas. Even if you don't want to contribute, it's just cool to check out what's going on there. There's no actual content being published until December. Let's see what's all we need to include in this filter here. So filter by tag. So it's a single tag, string tag. We'll do that one. Author. So author. Yep. Trying to match these up with the. Why do I keep doing that? Limit and favorited. 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 These need to be nullable for sure because they're completely optional. Previous year's entries are there as well. That's true. That's true, Gamler. So you can go check out the archive all the way back to 2017, I believe. Wait a second. I don't remember saying that. I certainly wouldn't spell it like that. Yeah, so you can go check out Gamler's entry from last year and the year before and year before that, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, you can check out all the previous articles. Hopefully they're all still alive. There's been 50 every year, so I don't go back and check to see if those links are dead or not. So it's just the raw links from previous years. Go check it out. Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Gambler. All right, so favorited. Limits. Limits, so this is just kind of for page sizing. And then offset. Yes, so I've thought of a validation here. This is an important one, is we definitely need to restrict limit and offset. Right, if someone sets it to 1 million, they're basically saying, give me all the articles. And there's got to be a limit where it's like, you can't really do a select of everything. So we have to limit that. So that is something we need to validate for sure. That'll be a validation error though. Offset, so that's it. Tag, author, favorited, limit, and offset. Those are the ones that are available. Notice there's no search string. That's something that could be added as a future feature, right? But that would probably involve using an actual search engine. So that might be a future enhancement if I wanted to stray from the Conduit requirements. Couchbase has the built-in full-text search engine, which can be combined with SQL queries. So that would make this a very easy feature to add, but it's not part of the spec, so we're not going to do that right now. This is enough to go with, to start with anyway. This is a lot of work as it is. So those things are going to be passed in to this model. That model would be passed into here, and I'm just going to combine all those things here. Whoops, oh, don't want to do that. I'm not sure how that happened. Username equals username. I want capital U for username. Data property, and these do not need to be publicly accessible. Now I want to go ahead and map these over as well. So filter.author. I'm going to call this author username. Filter dot favorited. Favorited by username. Make these a little bit more descriptive than the Conduit spec. Limit. Just keep that as limit. Whoops. That's totally fine. And offset. Is that all of them? Filter dot author favorite limit offset. Oh, tag. I forgot tag. Tag. Just call that tag. That's fine. So is that all of them? Filter dot author favorite limit offset tag and username. That's good. Property. 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 So this needs to be nullable as well, because username is optional. It's just determined by if you're logged in or not when you use this endpoint. That's all that means. Merge conflicts are the worst when someone is sitting on your MR, on your merge request. I assume that's what that means. Merge conflicts are annoying, yes. That's actually, I was listening to Jimmy Bogart on .NET Rocks podcast recently because it was about Mediator, and I'm using Mediator, so I wanted to learn more about motivations and maybe some tips on using Mediator. GitLab Brain, MR versus GitHub PR. Oh, they call it an MR over there. Okay. Way to be different, GitLab. Anyway, he was mentioning that one of the motivations for Mediator, which is what makes all these handlers separate files here, right? So article handler, create article handler. One of his motivations was when they had all their logic in, say, one big service class, for instance. So one big article class that would be like article delete, article get, that sort of thing, and all logic in there, that if people are working on two different features, like say one team member is working on article get, one team member is working on article delete, they're all in the same file. So this leads to tons of merge conflicts. So one way to address that is Mediator. So if someone's working on article delete and someone's working on create article, they're in separate files. No merge conflicts is going to happen on those classes. So I thought that was actually something I hadn't thought about before because I'm working on this myself, right? So I don't really run into merge conflicts. But that's a very good point. Like you have to think about the quality of life of developers, and that's going to make them more productive if they don't have to deal with merge conflicts. But sadly, merge conflicts cannot be eliminated completely just by using Mediator. So you still have them, so it's still a pain sometimes. So there's my get articles request. Alrighty. And now I just need to create a handler. Speaking of handlers, get articles handler, which is my request handler. Starting with the request, get articles request, and get articles response. Okay, this just needs the one handle method. Should be a sync. There we go. So I don't want to do any of the parsing of stuff in handler. So this is going to be very simple, like just turn around and hand it to the data service sort of thing. Of course, it's going to also perform some validation. Get articles request validator. Abstract validator. Get articles request. Okay, and so then I need to borrow some more code. No, not that one. I picked the worst one. Create article handler. Yeah, I want to grab this validation code, which I really should make some sort of part of a base class or something. Constructor. So I need validator of get articles request validator. Yep. Okay. And this is going to be returning a get articles response with validation errors. There we go. Okay, I think it's probably high time to write some tests. So let's do it. I'm going to do a unit test today. I think that's what I'm going to do, just for funsies. Haven't done one of those in a while. Articles, handlers, get articles, handler test. Tests. So test fixture. Do a setup. Look async task setup. This is where I'm just going to new up the handler. Unit test and funsies. I think those two words don't belong together. I really enjoy writing tests. It just does it for me. When I can see those greens pass, it makes me feel more confident in the code that I'm building. Not necessarily means that my code is good, it just means that my code works. So let's see, new get articles handler, and I need the validator here. I don't need it. I don't need a real validator. Real validator is fine actually. Validator equals new. This one right here. Now, before I get too far, I know I'm going to need a data access method here. So I'm going to go ahead and add this so I don't have to end up rewriting all my tests. So I will need a mock here. Mock articles data service. If I articles data service. So there's that, and the handler. I'll put the mock in here. I don't think I'll need any other data service or any other dependencies besides that. So I think this will be good. So I've got those all set to go. I don't actually do anything with the mock just yet. Just make sure it's passed in. Okay, so now time to write some validations. So limit must be limit value must be valid. I'm going to make this a test case. Int limit. Let's see. Let's all invalid limit and string message. Expected message. Okay. So what are some invalid limits? Negative numbers would be invalid. Limit must be a positive number. 0. Limit must be. Is 0 positive? I don't know. Must not be 0. How's that? I could probably combine these into one. Like limit must be greater than 0. Yeah. This is really only going to happen if someone comes around trying to mess with the API, the back end. The UI I don't think is going to allow this sort of thing. The other thing that might be worthwhile is maybe just think of a minimum limit, like a limit of 1 seems kind of bizarre. Hey Gamlor, thanks for dropping in. We'll see another time, maybe next week. Have a good weekend. But let's just go with that for now. And a maximum certainly is necessary here. Let's just get a maximum of 50. It must be less than 50. It must be less than or equal to 50. All right. Arrange act assert. Okay, so I need my request equals new gets articles request. Doesn't matter the username. Doesn't matter in this case. And then I need a filter object. Filter object is just going to have the one thing. Which is going to be limit equals to invalid limit. There we go. So the result equals await handler handle request and no cancellation token. So I need to assert that. What is this supposed to return? Unprocessable, which is 422. Result dot. Oh no, I'm not even in the controller. Okay, okay. Validation errors is not null. Getting ahead of myself. And validation errors dot count is equal to 1. And result dot validation errors 0 dot error message is equal to the expected error message. Okay, run all these tests. They should all fail. I have not done any validation logic yet. Just a completely empty shell of a class. Okay, so they do all fail. Back here, rule 4. X dot limit must. Wait, is there a? Isn't there a? Yeah, greater than or equal to. Just a cascade. Stop. Greater than or equal to. No, greater than 0. And I could say when x, now let's just do L dot limit has value. Because if it's null, then we're just going to use a default value. Okay? Run these tests, and I think 2 of them should pass now. Oh, what happened here? Limit must be greater than 0. Oh, interesting. Oh, I didn't specify message. That would be the reason why. So it's generating one for me. That's kind of cool. With message. But I'm going to use that one. Run this test again. 2 pass. Okay, good. And let's go back and do the other validation. Rule 4. Can I just add it here? Less than or equal to 50. And again, when it has an actual value. Whoa, I lost control. Oh, there we go. I couldn't see my cursor. With message. And my message is going to be, well, it must be less than or equal to 50. Like so. Oh, don't do that. I had those, did it for a reason. Okay. All right, so now all these tests should pass. And in fact, I could add another one like -128 or int.max value. And these should all pass as well. Cost me almost nothing to add those tests, so may as well add them. There we go. Cool. What about offset? Same sort of thing applies there. Task offset value, offset value must be valid. So again, invalid offset, string expected message. So this is the amount you're going to skip, which could be quite a lot, potentially. So I don't want to set an upper limit on that. I do want to test for negative values, right? So, and also 0 is probably acceptable as well. So I'm just testing the negative ones. So offset must be greater than 0. Offset must be greater than 0. Easy peasy. Copy a lot of this test here. We're not setting limit though. We're setting offset to invalid offset. Okay. And there we go. So these should all fail. Hope they do. Go add some validation. Rule 4. X.offset. I'm going to cascade it again. Must be greater than. Greater than or equal to 0 when it's specified. O dot offset has value with message. What is it? Offset must be greater than or equal to 0, because 0 offset is totally acceptable. I wouldn't bother doing that, but it's totally valid. Okay. Run. Okay, there we go. The other thing we could check, would it be worthwhile checking here, is the other stuff we have. Other stuff I have is, oh, we got an ad break going on. Username, author username. favorited by username. So would it be worthwhile to check to see these usernames actually exist? I think probably not. So I think the worst case, you just make up usernames, you're going to get 0 results. So I'm okay with that. And then same thing with tag. There are, tags are limited to a certain set. So if you put a tag of something else, excuse me, you're not going to get any results. So I think that's probably fine. It might be useful to indicate why your query didn't return anything because you put in invalid tag or invalid username. But again, this is only for people who are kind of bypassing the UI and going right to the back end. I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I'm going to leave those unvalidated for now. Those do involve additional database calls too, so just not super worried about it because this is a endpoint that I think is already going to be possibly the costliest one, if not second costliest one in the whole system. So I don't want to add to that. So I think that's probably good enough for now. Okay. What did I do with my test? Get article handler tests. Okay. And really all this is going to do is this isn't much of a test here, but wait, not get article. This is the wrong one. Get articles handler test. This is a unit test. So the other thing I can do is I can assert. This is not a terribly valuable test, but it doesn't take much. Handler calls data service with filters. All right. So it's going to be like so. Now, one thing that this handler might do is it might clean up those values. So I could test for that. So for instance, we could probably do in each individual one, right? So with username, with username filter, I don't know, cleaned up. Right, so if I had filter.username and filter dot, say author equals this needs trimmed, potentially if some request came by and has extra spaces, it's totally possible someone could put an extra space in an input box or something by mistake. This is the username. This is the username of the logged in user. So author, this needs trimmed. For logged in user equals current user needs trimmed. Put that here. Yep. Okay. And the other one was favorited, right? So favorited equals favorited by this needs trimmed. Trimmered. Okay. So passing those all in. Now the weird thing is I'm not going to test the results coming back because I'd have to mock that out in the database and that's kind of pointless. But one thing I can do is I can verify that that's what's being passed in. So x dot get articles. I don't know. Probably needs a better name than that. But this is going to just take in what? Does it need to be another object? Another class? So right now I've got this get articles request. Do I just modify that in place and pass it along? I would basically couple my handler to the data service, kind of. Well, it's not the worst thing in the world. I think I've done that already, in fact. Yeah, let's just go with that. It is get articles request. Where is it? Get articles request. And then I can f dot. What's wrong with you? Oh, because I haven't actually created this yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Request. Okay, and then I can, why doesn't it like this? Oh, not it is any, should be it is. Okay, and I'm going to f dot username. Yeah, I'm going to put this like so. I think that's what I want. Return f dot username equals this, the untrimmed version, and f dot author username equals not the untrimmed, the trimmed version. Needs to be trimmed. Yep. And f dot favorited by username equals, again, I want the trimmed version. What doesn't it like about this? Lambda cannot be converted to expression tree. What? What doesn't it like about this? Is it not? Oh, it's not return. Okay. No. What does that? What am I supposed to return there? It is supposed to. It's supposed to return a bool. Okay. I think this is a little too complex. Let me just try to break this down a little bit. Okay, that works. Can I put that in parens? It doesn't like that. A lambda with a statement body cannot be converted into an expression tree. I could have sworn I've done this before. What if I get rid of this? You gonna like that? Why doesn't it? See, it doesn't like F now. There we go. Okay, get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, not exactly what I was hoping for, but relatively readable. Okay, and we'll go and run this. And fail, of course. Okay, so what I need to do is result equals, I don't have a result there, but get articles and request. Just pass it right on through. What should that be returning? Should be returning obviously something like a list of article, right? No, I don't think so. Should be returning like I did with the user data service. Sweet, changes all caught up finally. Feel bad passing it on incomplete to Fritz, but vacation starting Sunday, won't be around. open source software, though, am I right? Do what you can. Any help is appreciated. Help. That's my point of view. Now, I know there are some open source software, like authors, creators, that are kind of overwhelmed with contributions, and certainly that's the other side of the coin. But yeah, I agree with you, Napalm. Any code, any pull request I get, any contribution, I definitely appreciate. Okay, so where are you going on vacation? Any place interesting? Where did I use some sort of key? Yeah, but that's not what I want to return. So I'm gonna create some sort of universal. Is that in Florida, I assume? Data results service, and it's going to be a list of, should I make it a list? Yeah, let's see why not. And this is going to be article, this is going to be essentially a view. You can think of it like a view object. Article, but it's like a data, like article data view, something like that, maybe? I don't know. This would have to exist in data access DTO. No, models. And I think I like tying this to a list. So article, in fact, do I put it in a list? Going back and forth on this. I think yes. Yes. Article list data view, because it's kind of designed for this specific endpoint. Change this to, this should be task of. It's a lot of angle brackets. I've never been to Universal. I've been to Disney World, of course, all the parks there. I've been to Busch Gardens a long time ago, but never Universal. My theme park, and of course in Ohio, I've been to Cedar Point and Kings Island. That's pretty much the extent of my theme park experience. Not been anything outside that. But sounds like a fun time. Where's my not implemented? Right here. Should be task of. So I'm not going to implement that yet because I'm not testing that yet. Just need that to exist. So there's the results and return new get articles response. Oh, I've got this articles view thing here. So I've already got article view model. Why don't I just reuse that? Is that a problem? If I couple that? I don't see why not. The problem there would be if I want to split this out into its own project. It can't depend on view models, but let's just go with that. That makes life a little easier. Should be a wait. What doesn't it like here? List of article view models. List article view models. Huh? Cannot convert. Oh, this needs to be results dot data results. Yeah. Okay. Back to what I was doing. Okay, run these tests. They should still fail. Object reference. This is object. Because I guess it's up to return something, I guess. Don't really care what it returns. Get articles. Set up m.get articles. It is any request. Oh, is any, what is it? Get articles request. Returns async. I don't really care. New whatever. new list, fine, and okay. Yep. So I didn't realize I needed that set up for verification. Let's just see what happens here. Should still fail. Okay, that's correct, I think. So now let's go ahead and, I'm going to just do this one at a time, just to prove this out. Clean up with the request. Request dot username, is that what I'm testing for? Username equals request dot username dot trim. And that's only if and only if it's null. Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Wait, what? Where's my handler? Darn it, get articles handler. Why doesn't it like this? Usually maybe null here. Oh, because I have them all privately set. So I had that one privately set. I forgot the other ones, but that's okay. I don't want that. Darn, I closed it again. Article handler. Get articles handler. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now we'll run this test. This should now pass. It does, okay. But now if I add this in, it will fail. Okay, so author username equals author username trim. Now it should pass. Okay. And once more, red. So green. Okay. Not a particularly high value test, but it does help me build out my design a little bit. Okay. Anything else? The get articles request. Let's just go look at that real quick here. Anything else need to be cleaned up or transformed by this handler? I don't think so. The tag could be cleaned up as well. Yep. Let's just do this. Just call it cleaned up, and we'll add that. Tag equals tag needs trimmed. And we'll change this to tag needs trimmed. Whoopsie. Okay, this should fail. Yeah, down here. Tag. Now it should pass. Okay, so I think that's all the handler needs to do at this point, is just validate, make sure we got correct offset limit values, clean up anything that's specified by trimming it, make a call to the data service, and then return that. I suppose it's possible that the data results could equal data results dot, yeah. Don't I have a enumeration? Hello, Visual Studio. Oh no, status equals is not okay. Then I could return new response. This is if something goes wrong with the query. What would be a good message for this? So something goes wrong with that query. Does not return okay. What kind of flag do I return to the controller? Did get fail? Is failure. I don't know. I can't think of a better name for that. Is failure is true. Back to the controller. Then we could also check here. We say if response.isFailure, we can return a unprocessed entity. There was an error retrieving articles. Okay. Alrighty. And so I could test for that here too, right? Handler returns failure if getting articles data is not okay. So the way to simulate that, okay, we got ourselves a spam. Sorry about that, everybody. This result actually doesn't do anything, so I could probably just get rid of that. Okay. But the result would be important here. The request, not important what it actually is. Why don't I have it? Yeah, arrange. Doesn't matter, and we'll create a filter object. Doesn't matter. Okay. What I need to assert though is, I need to also arrange the fact that data service m.getArticles, whoops, m.getArticles. I don't care what the request is. So getArticles request. All I care is that it returns. It was just a spammer, Surly Dev. No problem. New data service results of, I don't care what that value is, but I'm going to have a, it's not failed to insert, it's not found. You know, I've done this a couple times. We'll just call it general error, I guess. General error. It's fine. Okay, and then I just need to assert that result is failure is true. I already wrote this code, so it should pass if I did it correctly. And it does. Okay. So I think I've tested this out the wazoo. Closed it again. My goodness. I'm just too close happy with these windows. So I've tested this out the wazoo. I'm testing the cleanup. I'm testing failure condition. Testing validation. So I think this is pretty well covered. Why isn't my, by the way, my live unit testing should be showing coverage here. Something I think I mentioned this on the stream last time. But this should be showing like little green check marks next to this because this is under a unit test. There we go. And green check marks. Okay. So you can see here everything's pretty well covered by test. Not that that's necessarily the goal here, but this kind of shows that these tests kind of run automatically. I don't know if anyone's seen Visual Studio live test before, but let's say I go ahead and add something that will make this test fail. So now you'll see red X's. Pretty cool, except it's passing in some cases, but it's not passing in this case. So go ahead and save that, and we'll run them again and pass. So that's a pretty cool feature for unit testing. For integration testing, functional testing, it's a little bit, maybe not the best thing. Enterprise only Pro. This is a enterprise only feature. Is it? I don't know. I haven't confession time, I have not used anything less than Visual Studio Enterprise in, let's see, what is it? I can't see my MVP trophy, but I have not used it in however long I've been an MVP. Because I get one of the benefits of MVP is getting those licenses. So, yeah, this is a pretty cool feature. It's something that there's an extension, or not extension, but a third-party plugin for, at least that used to exist, called NCover. I think it did a very similar thing. It might not be around anymore. I don't know. But it was a Visual Studio plugin that would show, I think, circles instead of check marks. But it would show what was covered and if it was covered by a passing test or not. So pretty cool there. All right, so I've done all the easy stuff. I've put it off as long as I can. It's time to get to the articles data service. Dot cover. So I've not tried dot cover. Well, I'll take it back. I think I did try it once. I couldn't get it to work, and I was in a rush, so I was like, do it later. But yeah, dot cover is another option. I get free licenses for that because I'm MVP as well. It's good to be MVP most of the time. Okay, so I've got to build this method. Where did it go? Is it at the end? All the way down here? See, this is a problem. This is getting out of control for sure. You need this MVP you speak of. Well, I mean, if you think you can build a case that you're a community contributor with all the different activities, speaking at conferences, writing posts, volunteering, open source projects, etc., then I'd be happy to nominate you. Although I will warn you, though, I don't think anyone I've nominated has ever been accepted as an MVP. I could be wrong about that. But maybe Calvin? Did I nominate him? I don't remember. But I've nominated probably 3 or 4 people, and they don't get accepted. So I don't know if it's my fault. I'm just cursed. But anyway, that's how it works. I can nominate people to MVP because I am an MVP. So this is the method I need to work on. I'll move this to the bottom. High expectations set. Well, the thing is you gotta make sure you have a good enough case. And I don't really know what the raw criteria are because I think that they are, in a sense, somewhat qualitative. The MVP managers and I think even the product teams at Microsoft weigh in on if they think this person is deserving an award or not. I don't know. You'd love to, but I know I don't do enough for them. Well, I think that's also the key, is that don't think of this as something like to set out to achieve, right? Just think of it as these are the things I do anyway. And if Microsoft recognizes that, think of it as an award, right? Not like a certification or a goal, but as an award for doing stuff that you like doing already. I like speaking at conferences and helping at conferences and helping manage conferences and run conferences and blogging and tweeting and creating content and doing the C# Advent. The C# Advent itself might be enough that they're like, oh yeah, this guy from the C# team, yes, we definitely want him as an MVP. There might be other things. I do weigh into that as well, but stuff like that where it's stuff I would do anyway. If MVP program just fell off the face of the earth, I would still be doing these things. I wouldn't be tracking them the same way I am, but I'd still be doing them. Okay, so it's time for some SQL. Okay. So this is the SQL. This is like the full-blown SQL right here. This something that could potentially be done in Link. I don't feel confident enough in my Link abilities to do that. But Brant, if you're watching, if you're lurking, and you've got nothing else better to do with your time, I'm sure, I would love to see a Link version of this. But we're going to start with plain old SQL. So let's just the bare minimum here. Let's see. Query results. Okay, so I need to start with cluster. Do I have cluster object? Not cluster, but I want collection. I do need cluster, but awaits. This is going to be articles. Get collection. And I just need to get the cluster from that. So collection dot scope dot bucket dot cluster. And I could put that as an object at the kind of property level, but I don't use it a lot. And this actually might be a way to split up this interface at some point. I don't know. This is growing quite a lot, and there's a few more to come. So it'd be interesting to think of ways to split this up, because again, like I was mentioning earlier, if two people are working in here, that's going to lead to merge conflicts, right? Now, hopefully, there'll not too many conflicts, because someone's working in update article, someone's working in unfavorite, two different parts of the code. They're separate, but it still might result in merge conflicts. Okay, but for now, let's just go and get result equals await cluster.query. And this is going to be article view model SQL options. So this is where the parameters are going to go, but it's also where I'm going to say, what is it? It's called scanning consistency. Now, the default scanning consistency is not bounded, but I want to be explicit about this. Say this is not bounded, which means it is going to be eventually consistent with the index being used. This is the most performant option. This is what I was using in the benchmarks as well. It's not going to wait for whatever articles that have not been indexed yet. It's not going to wait for those to get indexed. And for this endpoint, for this method, I think that's fine. Because if you're viewing the home page, if you're viewing it immediately after you create your own article and you're hoping it shows up on the home page, then you're going to be like, oh, it's not there yet. But for the general public viewing a medium.com site, if that article doesn't show up in the first few seconds of its creation, no problem. That's okay. We're thinking long term, right? So this is a performance option that I think makes sense. Okay, so I've got this result. It contains all these article views. If we look at article view model, it's all these things that we've seen. And this is what's going to be the result. It's going to fit into the same view model. It's identical to the get single article. It's just a collection of them. So then I need to return new data results of the result dot rows and data result OK. Now this is an async enumerable. So what I can do here is I can say to list async and await that. Now, potentially there's some cool stuff we could do with async enumerable, right? Could potentially do like a situation where you're streaming the results to the endpoint. I'd have to make this to be a enumerable or async enumerable, right? Which might be something we could do. That might actually be interesting to try that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never done that before. We'd basically be returning these to an endpoint in a enumerable. My concern would be, do I have to keep the connection alive after the request is done? I don't think so. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But this will be starting to return results. The thing is, the client side would have to know how streaming works. Otherwise, it's just going to wait for the asynchronous, the list to enumerate. So I don't think there's much to gain from this. There's potentially though, if you wanted to show if there was a if there's a performance benefit to this, like the client's going to load those articles as they come in over the wire. It probably have to be some, I don't know if REST could necessarily support that. It probably could. Maybe some gRPC or something like that. But anyway, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to explore that just yet. Just get it working, and then we can look into those things later. But this does return iasync enumerable, something you should definitely know about. That's what's being returned by this query. So you can turn that into a normal list, but there are some possibilities there. Okay, so that is going to work. Of course, this is all hard-coded now. So I need to start making this query more dynamic. Okay, so where do I start? This stuff all is good. No need to change that. We're always going to be selecting from that. We're always going to be joining to the author, yes. So for authenticated users, these lines need to be added. So let's spin those out. Authenticated users join. Put that in there like so. Okay. Now, actually, if they're not authenticated, then that's just going to be a blank string, right? So then we can say if request username has what? I can't say has value. Is this not nullable? Okay. Then I put that in here. These comments need to go away, but basically we can go ahead and replace that with authenticated users join. So this part goes away. All right. Now, this is hard-coded mgrove, so that needs to be something else. I'm going to call that $current, let's call it logged in user. Login user name and login user name. So this is joining only when it's an authenticated request. And if it's authenticated, then we need to look at the articles being returned. Are they ones that I've favorited? And the authors of those articles, are those authors that I follow? These could also be parameterized. They should be, in fact. Bucket name equals, let's go back down here, I think. Whoa, too far. So I need all these things. Bucket name equals collection.scope.bucket.name. And so then I can put that in here. Need to put some ticks around it. Unfortunately, you can't parameterize bucket names. You just have to build them right into the string. Okay. Scope name equals collection.scope.name. And same thing goes here. Ticks, 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 ticks. Scope name and scope name. Okay, now something tricky. I don't think I'm going to worry about like making these dynamic because those should always be the same. But I could potentially pull articles collection name from the articles collection. Seems like a bit overkill in this case, and I'm already hard coding those in migration scripts and elsewhere, so that's fine. I don't expect, in fact, I don't want those to be configurable. It doesn't really make any sense to do so. Okay, and yep, that all looks good. No, this does not look good. That needs to be 2 colons there. Okay, so none of this will happen if the user isn't logged in. So this will just be a blank string, but There we go. And in fact, while I'm at it, let's go ahead and parameterize, since I passed these up already, the bucket and scope name there, but again, leave these hard-coded, but I will put them in ticks. Unnecessary unless there's like a special character in the name, but it's still valid to do so. These all could be put in ticks, in fact, like so, but that's okay. I want to do that. Okay, looks good. And this is the if the user is favoriting it. So we'll do another situation up here. Filtering, let's see, this is a join, right? Filtering on favorited by join. And we can say if request dot favorited by username not equals null. I'm going to add this. So take this part out here. Equals $@ and paste that right into there. Scoot that over a little bit and scoot that over a little bit. Okay. You can take out these comments. But I do need to put in, do this thing here again with the bucket and scope. And I need to put in the favorited by parameter. In fact, why don't I go ahead, before I forget that, let's go ahead and add those as an option. So options.parameter login username is the request.username. And parameter, what was the other one I just added? Favorited by? Favorited by username. So that will get populated with that parameter. Okay. And everything else looks good there. Just need to replace that portion right here. All right. Convenience variable, that's fine. I can leave that in there. That's needed no matter what. We've got these optional filters. So filtering by tag list is next. Filtering by not tag list, filtering by tag. This is a predicate. Oh, I don't need that. Okay. And then if request.tag not equals null. Filtering by tag predicate equals. You see what I'm talking about with the complexity. I mean, it's not super complex. This is understandable. It's just a lot of extra checking and filtering and so on, which hypothetically could be put into the SQL. Makes it a little harder to read, I think. Okay, and we've got this, so just put a tag in there. That looks good to me. And this will be like here. Filtering by tag predicate, and I need to add another parameter, which was it tag? Yep, tag. And request.tag. No problem. And if these things are null, that's fine, because there'll be nothing in the query to bind them with anyway. So I'm not going to check for that. This can be shortened up a little bit though. I don't need $sign there. Do want to put a space around it just in case. Okay. Now the author. So if we have an author, we're going to filter by. Filtering by author predicate. Okay, if request.author username not equals null. Filtering by author predicate equals, this will just be a nice short one too. Like so. And we'll make this author username. Did I use it already? No. So that predicate goes right here. author username. Request.author username. Okay. Good. And what else? Favorited by. I already have that, right? Yes. So this needs to be, I need to add a predicate. Filtering on favorited by predicate. So filtering on favorited by predicate equals, like so, and that is good as is. So I can just kind of slot that in there. So there's all my 3 predicates. So tag, author, favorited by. Those are all optional filters. Notice they all start with and, which makes it easier for me to build this expression because I can put a where 1 equals 1 before that, and then everything else starts with and. Otherwise, I'd have to do kind of a string join and put where at the beginning, and it'd be a whole thing, and this is just easier. This is kind of more my style. This is what I've done in the past. So, order by date, yes, that's always true. Parameterization for limit and offset. So this will be limit. Limit and limit. And offset. Those need to be optional as well, right? No, because they might have some default values. Limit equals request. Limit, if that's null, then make it 20. And offset equals request.offset. If that's null, make it 0. Why don't I just do these down here? Yeah, offset. Default of 20 and default of 0. Yeah, I think that's fine. This is kind of a magic number, right? But I could make that like a constant up here. If you think it's worthwhile, but I think this is only place for now where I have that set. So I'll just make a little comment like default page size of 20, default to first page. I think this query is done inside my code base anyway. It's a lot of stuff here. It's a pretty long function, but it's building a dynamic SQL query. So is there anything I could do to make this more readable? Well, no. Stop. First we need to make sure it works. That's the key. So, testing. Not unit test now, integration test of articles services. We're going to test the getArticles method. So, getArticles tests. This is where the real work starts. I called it integration test base, Couchbase. That's what I call it. Yeah, still call it that. Okay. Setup. Hopefully async task setup. Just copy and paste some stuff from elsewhere. Just copy all this. Why not? Feeling copy and paste happy. All right, and all I need is I think I don't need favorites. So I'm going to get rid of that. Don't want this one. Oh, yeah, I do want this one. Why is this giving me the full thing? Okay, whatever. Articles, data. Oh, I do need favorites. For the whole service needs them. And this might be a reason to split up these interfaces because I don't need favorite to test this or for this to function. So anyway, let's keep going and results with no filters, no authentication, authenticated user. So need to create some articles in the database to do this. And at least 20 of them, right? Do I have a articles helper? I thought I did. Yeah, create article in database. So, create 20 articles. Enumerate. What is it? Get too fancy. I don't know. What's the syntax? Anyone remember? 0 I less than 20 I plus plus. Just do that. I think there's an enumerate, like enumerable dot range. Start 0 and do it 20 times, something like that. Like a for each. I can't remember what it is. I don't know. Let's just go with that. So creating 20 article database. I need to have at least 20 in there to test. Now the thing is, there might be other articles in there already, so I can't test that these specific ones show up. I can do that later. I just want to test that this works. Data service dot get articles. So request equals get articles request. Request equals new get articles request. Null, and the filter is just going to be just an empty filter. Nothing going on there. So now I need to assert that result dot, this needs to be a wait. Result dot status is equal to data, what is this? What do they call this? Data result status dot okay. So this is going to be a long running test. It's got to create 20 things and then query 20 things. So, okay, got a parsing error. What is the error? Let's see. Ambiguous reference to field fav current. Fav current. Oh. Fav current always has to be. Well, okay. This will always be false if you're not logged in. So I don't have, that needs to be figured out as well. So if you're not authenticated, then it needs to be something else. So this will be an authenticated favorite projection. That's what I'll call this one. So if authenticated, then it's a certain thing. Otherwise, it's going to have to say false as favorited. So what this was doing was it was trying to get the favorite status of this article, but the user's not logged in, so there's no way of knowing if they're favorite or not, so I just returned false. So this is what needs to be returned. Where do I put the comma? Where's the best place to put that comma? Let's put it right there. So this needs to be returned. And we'll slot that in right there. Yeah, I like having the comma here. Okay. So is fav current always joined? Authenticate users joined? Yes, it brings in fav current there. Okay. Try it again. So that was a SQL parsing error. Ambiguous reference to field FOL. FOL, where's FOL? It's here. It's the same thing. Gosh, okay. Authenticated follow projection. Follow projection. Projection. Projection equals that. Otherwise, false as following. But it doesn't like that in the subquery, so I got to do this. Following false. Okay, let's try it again. No index available. Yep, I forgot the index. So, got to go back to my benchmarks. And I got to add this to the migrator. So, which index should I add? Now, this one is mighty complicated. And for a pure SQL, it doesn't really add a lot. So, I'm going to go with the simple one for now. Because I think maybe you're seeing a pattern here. I prefer the simple as possible. So, time to create a new migration. Migration 7. Class create index for list articles. Migrate base. And we'll override that. And then I'm going to put manual alternative. Create index. Okay. And I'm going to call this ADV anymore. I'm going to call it IX. Articles author username. Yep, okay. So then definitely have to do this still, because I do want to allow the scope name to be configurable. Okay, so create index of name this. On, let's see, on scope, on collection, yep, on scope, scope name, on collection, this is articles, on field, it's only the one field, author, username, and then the down of this is to delete index. Let me just look back here. Delete index from scope from collection. So index name from scope, the configured scope name from collection, articles. Okie doke. Put this in its own file. Hopefully the comment goes with it. It does not. So now I got to copy this over myself. And I'm going to rename that file so it stays in line 007. Okay. With that in place, I think creating this will run that migration for me. I'm doing this locally still. I need to get back to using Capella for these. I did learn a lot from race conditions and stuff by doing that. So, and we got pass. There's the index. Exactly what I created. So there we go. So it's worth noting that there are other options for more complex and or covering indexes. This index is the simplest for the list articles query, SQL++ query. Okay, I think that's just all I need to say. I'm in an ad break right now. Woo, help me, I'm in an ad break. But there we go. So the test passes, which is fantastic. Just need to assert that there are 20 results in there. That's the default, right? Data results dot count is equal to 20. Yeah, this has got live testing on, but I exclude those integration tests from live testing because they can be costly to run over and over and over. So I don't do that. Okay, look at that. It's working. Fantastic. Alrighty. Let's get crazy with these tests now. Results filtered by what should we start with? Authenticated. Filtered, well, results with authenticated user. Okay. And so again, I'm going to create 20 articles. In fact, I should go ahead and create articles so there's at least 20 in the DB. Okay, arrange creates articles with that are all favorited by a user. So we'll create a user here. I don't have a user service. User data service. Wait, no. What am I doing? Yeah, user collection provider. Conduit users collection provider. Yep. I'm only bringing this in not because I'm testing anything with the users. I'm just testing. I have to have a user that is going to be favoriting these articles. So we'll also need the favorited, right? Which is fine. I've got add favorite in database. User.username and welcome back from the ad break. I'm just like in the zone right now, writing these tests. I'm really excited because it basically worked on first try. I'm super happy, and I need to create some tests to just go crazy against this thing to make sure that it's functional, all the filters are working as I expect. So now I'm creating a test with authenticate. This first one was unauthenticated user, no filters. This is basically the simplest case. Someone shows up to my website for the very first time and sees the home page or whatever. That's working. So now they've logged in and maybe they've favorited some articles. Need to make sure that those articles show up as favorited. And it also authenticated user favorited. Okay. So this is going to create 20 articles, and they're going to be the 20 most recent articles in the database. So I think we're okay to write this test to assume that it's going to pull those latest 20. TBD Gamer, morning to you as well. You must be a West Coaster, right? Because it's approaching lunchtime for yours truly. Also, TBD Gamer, since you're a moderator, check this out. Well, you're not showing up yet. Let's refresh this. I want you to be aware of this. I'm not sure if you know. You're not showing up here. You're an East Coaster, but you start work later. Okay. Check this out. I can highlight messages now in the chat. This is using featured.chat. If you're familiar with that, TBD Gamer, you are a mod. You can log in and highlight messages yourself if you wish. I never wrote that. I don't know how that's showing up. Surly Dev is apparently still hanging around and lurking. You can tell I didn't write it because it's got the English spelling of favorite on there. and not the American spelling. Okay. Okay, now we're going to do a request, and I'll use the user this time. Okay. Yeah, all right. And now I'm going to assert that everything worked. Just start there. I'm going to create those 20 articles and just make sure that the query works. 20 articles and favorites. Okay, great. So what can I do to assert? Do I need to just hold on to those articles? Article slugs. Add article dot slug, and then I can think about this. Let's just say for each thing in result, I want to assert that. I don't need to hold these, do I? I don't think so. Assert that the article favorited is true. So make sure all 20 of these are favorited, because that's what I set right here, is favorited. Oh, not favorited. Why not? Because perhaps it is an indexing issue. So this is where it bites me with the potentially. Let's just change it just to test. The scan consistency potentially bites me here. Nope, that wasn't the issue. Okay, that's kind of a relief. Although I'm still concerned that could be a problem. But so why isn't it returning favorites? Oh, what happened? I want to call this result. What is in there? Why is it false? I'm in release mode. Why am I in release mode? Okay, because I was doing benchmarks. You need to be in release mode for benchmarks. I've been in release mode this whole time. Okay, how did your benchmarks go, by the way? Oh, I covered these earlier in the stream there, TBD Gamer. But let me, as soon as this passes, or as soon as I run this test, let me just, I'll go back to revisit that. Favorite equals false. And Napalm, you're interested as well. Okay, so we're going to just ask ChatGPT. What's up, Jimothy Hendricks? Thanks for joining. Just ask ChatGPT. What should I ask ChatGPT? Okay, benchmarks. So the question was basically, I'm going to sum this up much faster, hopefully. Do a full query and just return everything from that, or just return the slug and pull everything else using the key value API. That was the question. And so I constructed a benchmark. I'm not claiming this is perfect or accurate or anything like that, but it gives me at least some idea. So here's my benchmark. Benchmark.net is what I'm using. And creating some test data. So this creates, I think, a couple thousand articles. Yeah, 1,000 articles and 100 authors. Adds them into the system. Here's the pure SQL test. This is a strip down, no filters, just select the first 20, the latest 20 articles. That's all this is doing. It has to join to get the favorites, the favorited and the following, and it has to get the author information. So there's four total collections being queried here. And so this is returning the results. The other option is, here's the strip down one where I'm selecting just the slug, nothing else. But then I go and I use Mediator to use the key value API to look up all the other information. So just like you would with a get endpoint, but I'm doing it now, 20 times per each endpoint. So that's going to be one select query plus 20 times 3, I think. 4 gets. So 80 gets. One query plus 80 gets versus one big query. And here's the results. So this is all put together by benchmark.net, except for this part, benchmark.net. So here's the pure SQL point of view and SQL plus KV approach. SQL plus KV. So believe it or not, one query plus, what did I say, 80 gets, so 80 requests to the database is faster than a pure SQL approach. I'm not saying that's the approach you should take. In fact, that's not what I'm doing. I'm taking the pure SQL approach. But this goes to show you that, the typical approach I would take as a SQL Server developer, for instance, is a request to database. I want to avoid multiple requests as much as possible because you have to wait on disk and it's just slow, and multiple requests can, if I did 80 SQL requests in one page, which I have seen before, but that is a lot of pain. That's a lot of time. I don't remember where you found a prediction either, TBD Gamer. I know Aaron said pure SQL would be better. And he still might be right for a number of reasons, which I'll get to. But this is the index I used here, a really simple index. Latency across the wire is true, Napalm, but that's actually, in this case, it's all local. So there is no wire. That's a good point, though. There might be latency across the wire, which I'm not factoring in here. I could rerun these with Capella. That's also not fair because it's now my computer to Virginia. So that could be a factor as well. And that's not part of this. So that could be one factor that's definitely not included here. So really good point. But this is the index that I use for this. This is basically the simplest index, non-covering index. So then I said, what if I had a covering index? So this is on the full, this is the index that was given as a suggestion for the full-blown pure SQL query. A lot of fields there being covered, which means fewer or zero trips to the data service behind the scenes. Even with that, SQL plus K-value killed it. It did increase pure SQL speed, but SQL plus K-value got even faster. And again, this does not factor in latency, which is a very good point, Napalm Coder. So that actually is probably a pretty big deal now that I think about it. And then finally I got to, this is the covering index, but optimized for the smaller query where we're just selecting slug. So it's only covering, 3 or 4 fields here. This one got even more drastically faster. SQL plus KV is now 1/4 as 1/4 the latency of the original. So this can be a lot faster, but yes, I think that's one thing that's missing from this Napalm codes is like a local area network latency figured into it. But I think what I'm trying to demonstrate here, and I think this is true even with latency, is that a key value lookup to Couchbase, it's looking up from memory. It's not waiting on disk. So all you have is network latency plus RAM latency, which is very, very, very low latency. So it's basically network latency plus a little tiny bit more. But these benchmarks do not figure in much network latency. It's all local to this machine. And then running them against Capella, again, I have to put them in the same Azure data center, for instance, and run these iterations against that. That being said, all that being said, I'm going with the pure SQL approach because there's something to be said for understandable code, code that's easier to write, easier to modify, and SQL plus KV it brings in multiple pieces. It's a more complex situation. If I was building for a real medium.com backend, for instance, I would have a much more rigorous set of tests and indexes that I would run tons of benchmarks on with maybe a bigger workload. Mine's only 50 iterations. I might do 1,000 iterations, something like that. So, yeah, premature optimization might be the case here. And, my goal isn't necessarily, it is try to be real world, right? That's the name of this project, is real world. But there's something to be said for, as a learning tool, this is a good place to start. And, if it's a performance bottleneck, one of the answers just might be, like Aaron said on Tuesday, just throw another node at it. Have another query node, which, and again, in the relational world, that's challenging. In the Couchbase world, that's trivial. Just bring up another node and attach it to the cluster, and away you go. You've potentially doubled your query capacity. And then if that's still not meeting performance goals, then we can look at the more complex, SQL plus K value. Yeah. Yes, it's true. It does increase costs. Yes, that is true. But you also have to factor in the cost of developers' time and maintenance time and all this, the total cost of ownership, as they say. Yes, absolutely. There is a balance. Yes, this is a very good point. I need to show this on the screen, in fact. It's such a good point. There is absolutely a balance of optimizing speed of development, speed of maintenance, speed of the actual latency of the endpoint. It's all an important balance. And that's something that when people say best practices, this is the kind of situation that drives me crazy, because what's the best practices in this situation? It's going to vary a lot based on the size of your team, your performance goals, your budget, your knowledge of SQL, your knowledge of the key value API, your knowledge of .NET. It's all going to vary. So there is no best here. All this is doing is just kind of showing that there is a difference in this specific situation, which doesn't even take into account the network latency, like you're saying. Yeah, first to market, sure. That's also a factor, right? How long is it going to take us to ship this versus shipping the more optimized version, and all that kind of stuff. And add the node, revisit it later. Yeah, sure. So those are all important factors. So, yes, a really good discussion. But I'm going to go with the pure SQL approach, which is what I'm doing here. This makes it a little bit, well, not this one. This makes it I think, a little easier to comprehend. It's still a very complex, this is a long method. I would like to look at ways of getting this down to something smaller. Maybe link is one way to approach that. I mentioned that earlier. No problem. I love diversions on this stream. So link might be a way to get this down to be something a little smaller, although I suspect it's still going to be nice and long. Sprocket, yeah, Couchbase doesn't have sprocs, at least not yet. Potentially could be a user-defined function, but then I've got to add the logic in the SQL. And for as much as I love SQL, and much as I think SQL is a great language, having that kind of, this kind of logic here, like if statements and dynamic SQL inside of a Sprock or UDF, I think SQL is not very good at that. Because SQL, I think, is a lot more of a declarative language, and what we're doing here is a lot more imperative. Yes, and certainly my general feeling about Sprox is avoid as much as possible. But this could potentially be a UDF in Couchbase. So if you wanted to put this, it'd be a lot more complex, I think, than doing it in C#. But you could absolutely put it in a UDF in Couchbase. Absolutely, sometimes you can't get away from Sprox. Yes, you're absolutely right about that. And again, this is all about balance. I don't want to take an extreme position of never use Sprox or always use Sprox. But yeah, sometimes Sprock is the way to go. And I could absolutely understand if, if you wanted to put this in a Sprock, this particular endpoint, yes, that's fine. It's going to be, I think, a lot more complex to write that Sprock and maintain that Sprock in the long run, because I have done this. I've done this sort of thing before with Sprox. But yeah, no Sprox in Couchbase just yet. UDF might work, but I'm not going to do a UDF as well. You have seen the everything is a nail approach using Sprox as a hammer. I have as well. That's why I'm probably so soured on them, is because that was my first interaction with Sprox, was completely pointless use of Sprox, and it was infuriating. And so that kind of soured me on them in the beginning of my career. Now I went on to, of course, use Sprox, write Sprox, maintain Sprox. I have done that. So, okay, where was I? So, yeah, these aren't returning favorites. So add favorite in database, username slug. All right, pull from the article. So this should have this user favorite this slug. There's no reason this shouldn't work, right? Yeah, this is using a set. This does use date time now, right? Yeah, date time now. Okay. All right, so my concern is this being built correctly? Let's step through it. So we're going to step through. The only thing I've changed is I'm adding a username, a logged in, what I'm considering a logged in user to this query. Okay, so here we are. Here's the request. Everything's null except for the username, which is this randomly generated user. Okay, everything's good there. These are all start out blank. Request.username is not null, so we're going to go on in here. We're going to add this join, add this projection, add this follow projection. So those all get added. Okay, those should all stay the same. There's nothing there, so skip. Again, skip. And no author, so skip. So there is the query. Let's take a look at it. I want to put this, is this some sort of like a SQL prettify? Didn't really work. Doesn't seem that pretty to me. Okay, let's look at it in, I don't know, in Visual Studio. SQL++. Okay. So this looks correct. This looks correct. And fave current is being joined. Logged in username is there. Let's just make sure that, yeah, it's the same username as a parameter. Okay, there's the result. Go back to my get article handler. Where is it? Get article handler, which I keep closing. Okay. So there we go. Wait. What happened? So all that query looked fine to me. What in the world? Oh, I'm not testing the handler. Okay. I was like, why wasn't it hitting that breakpoint? I'm not testing it. I'm testing the article data service. Okay. So I want to just kind of peek at the results. So I'm going to have to normalize the, like, get those to list. Wait, no, I don't. No, I don't. Okay. Okay, results. There they are. There's 20 of them. Favorited is false. Is that... Let me just look at this again. Add favorite in database. Is it favorite doc ID? Username. Yep. Article key. Yeah, that should be correct. Let me look at this query again. So why don't... okay. I'm going to run this and just make notes of what gets generated. The user specifically. Make a little note of the user. So that I can try testing this query in like Visual Studio or the Workbench or something. Okay. So this user that's logged in is this string right here. Okay. So I can assume, hopefully, I can find all the information for this user in the database. So here we go to, let's go to the actual users. Paste that key in. There's the user. Okay. Oh no, the password, it's been exposed. Okay, and then for favorites, what? Yes, there are favorites. What are we doing here? Okay, weird. Favorites. There's the favorites, and there is 20 articles in there that's been favorited. Okay. Weird. All right. But if I take this query, this was what was generated, and I just, instead of parameterizing, I can just plug these in, right? So the logged in username was that, and limit 20, offset 0, whatever. Okay, so it runs, but it still says favorited false. Fave current. Array contains article key. What if I put article key in here? What am I going to see? Article key. So there's that. If I go back to, let's open a new tab here. My users, no, my favorites. This is the article. This is one of the articles. I'm making note of it. If I bring up favorites, not favorited, favorites? What? What is this doing here? Those aren't favorites. What in the world? Couchbase, what are you showing me here? Okay, weird. All right, I don't know what was going on there. Favorites. So here is the list of favorites. Is that article in there? So 0YK. 0YK. It's not there. What? Now I'm stuck in zoom in mode. Okay. Computer is not behaving today. Okay, so what in the world? What are those IDs? Which ones are you talking about? These right here? And we find, yes, I can find this actual article, so I can just copy one of these and go over to articles, which this UI is misbehaving for some reason. Okay. Yeah, it's an actual article. There it is. It's one that got generated, I assume in the test. But why wasn't it added to the favorites? Let me look at this code again. So creating a user in the database. I know that works. Creating an article in the database. And then favoriting that article in the database. So making sure this user favorites that article. Doesn't seem to be what I'm expecting it to do, though. pulling other articles. But between the time I create these articles and the time I select them, there are no other articles being created. So it should be pulling those latest 20. It should be pulling these exact 20. Order by descending, yeah. So it's created it's going to be, datetime.now minus a few seconds at the most, right? Always. Let me back to this. What if I just set this to created as? I don't need to coalesce that now, do I? Is it possible that I'm not sorting by the dates correctly? Following false, yes, but I want to know favorites. Favorite false. Let's look at these date formats here real quick. These are lexicographically sortable, right? That's not today though. What the heck? Why isn't it pulling articles from today? What in the world? Oh, this body is really cramping my style. Why isn't it pulling dates from today? That's weird. Okay, well that's got to be the reason. Okay, well what if I just select star from articles A, so A dot slug, A dot created at order by A dot created at descending. Is this going to run? No, got to create a primary index. Yeah, executes. Okay. So those are today. Those are the ones I'm creating. So what am I doing wrong here? Oh, I think I know. It's my test. Creating an article. This does not create an author. And I'm joining to an author, not left join to an author. Author's not there. So therefore join won't have anything to join with. So it's returning old stuff. This is a test data issue. Boom, there we go. So one thing I should think about with this test helper is maybe make an option to also create a author same time. This is not the first time this has bit me. Thank you, TBD Gamer. Appreciate that. But there we go. That's working and happy about it. Gotta step away to those meetings. That's okay, TBD Gamer. Gotta pay those bills. Thanks for joining. Hope you have a good weekend. Great to see you. We have about half an hour left in the stream. I'm definitely not going to get all the way with tests. I want to test the heck out of this thing. Results with authenticated. I don't really need to worry about authenticated user. Yeah, authenticated. I do. Authenticated user following authors. Okay. So this is going to be similar to this. I'm going to use this as a starting point. Create articles that are all followed by a user. Not create articles, but authors. So I'm going to create an author for each one now. Forget the favoriting, but I will favorite, add favorite in database, the username, and the article.slug. So at this point, I need to know .author.following is true. So I'm creating now another user who's logged in. For 20 times, I'm creating 20 different authors and assigning those authors to 20 new articles. And then every article I am marking as a favorite for my logged in user. And construct a get. No filtering required here. I just want to test the following part. So I think this should work. Is not. Oh, of course it doesn't. Okay. Go back to my workbench. Yeah, this is a different author, so it's not going to work. So I got to get, just want to test in the workbench. Again, this is probably a test data issue. It's just, annoying. Okay, here's my user. Username is a new one now. Look at this guy. Okay. Go ahead and run through all this stuff, building everything. And fail the test. Okay, good. Back to this. Replace this guy with this new one. This new one. And execute. And author following false. Okay, looks like the right date though. So maybe this is a problem with this query. Array contains, so maybe I just need to see what's in fall, maybe? Nothing. Can we go over here and look at follows? Yes, there is an object. Oh. This is not follows. What? Why do you keep doing this to me, Couchbase? Follows. There we go. Okay. Not found. There is no following. This is in favorites again for some reason. Okay. Good gravy. What is happening? No, not favorites. Follows. Refresh. Why do you keep going back to favorites? Follows. What on earth is going on? So that makes me think that it's not actually putting anything when I say follow. Wait. I'm looking for favorites. What am I doing? No. What am I looking for? Following authors. Yes, I'm looking for follows. Are there a lot more in here? Should be. Okay. But this makes me think that it's not actually working. Wait, why did I... Oh my god. Not favorite collection provider. There is no follow collection provider yet, so... This is twice now I've second-guessed my SQL writing skills. follow collection provider. Conduit follows collection provider. Yep, there we go. Whoa. Follow collection provider. Do I not have any helpers for that? Test helpers, data. Yeah, I've got a follow helper. Yeah, follows collection provider. Create, oh, there it is. I don't know why I didn't see that. Okay. Username doing the following is a user and following, follower. Oh, Lord. I hope I got that right. I hate that naming. I hate it. No, I think it's backwards. I think this should be the author is the one being following, and the user is the one being the follower. Okay, we're going to find out. Yay! Da, 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 da. Article I don't need to save for any reason. This is all about the following and the followers. Line 76, authenticated. Close enough, Surly Dev. Jeez. Authenticated, is that better? Authenticated? How's that? You get the point, though. I'm not sticklers for spelling here. Okay, great. Now let's get into the filters. So I don't care about the logged in user anymore. What should we test first? Thought it was some couch-based term. Authenticated? Authenticated. Article filter options. So article filter options model. Yep, right here. Okay, let's try it with. Let's do an easy one. Let's do limit. Results with limits specified. And we'll do limits. We can do a bunch. We can just start with a test case of like 5. All right. So then this is all about just articles. I don't care about any of this stuff. Don't care about any of that. Oh, or do I? I think yeah, I don't want to mess this up again. But I only need to go to limit. Let's say limit +1. Create limit. Whoa, stop. What is that? What's happening? What did I do? Stop. Oh, I'm such a clumsy typer. Okay. +1 articles. What do we say instead of create? Well, we arrange them. And then I will act. Just need a request. Request. Equals new articles request. Don't care about the username. There isn't one. Filter. Equals article filter. And all I care about now is filter.limit equals limit. Assert. Everything's okay. And I don't need to do a for each. I can just say results.data result.count is equal to limit. Okay. I just have the one that's 5. So let's go ahead and do this. This is just making sure there's 5 articles in there to begin with, because I can't assume that there are. There we go. And let's just do it with all kinds of crazy values. 55, 1, that's probably good enough. Don't need to go too crazy. But those all should pass. The exact count should match the exact limit I asked for. Offset's going to be a little more annoying to test, so let's not do that just yet. Let's do one more. I got 20 minutes left today. Let's just wrap this up with one more. It's a Friday. Maybe we can finish early. Tag. Oh, I forgot how to write code for a second. There we go. Can we arrange some that are tagged and some that aren't? Something like that. Arrange some articles that are tagged, some that aren't. Instead of some, let's say arrange 20 that are tagged, 20 that aren't. I don't know if this is the best way to test this or not. I less than 20, I plus plus. Well, tagged with my expected tag, I guess. And I'm going to call that cruising as my tag. Have to create the authors as well. And tag. Oh, maybe I'll make this a. Just make this easier on myself. I have one that's cruising, one that's baseball. How's that? So I have some that are cruising, and we'll create another one. The same author, why not? It's baseball. These all could be the same author, in fact. There's no sense creating 20 authors in this case. Okay, and would it make sense for me to collect these? Cruising. Checkman XD, thank you for the follow. I'm glad you're here, hanging out. Almost ready to wrap up today's stream. Just got to finish this test. But how are you today? Hope you're going into a great weekend. Cruising article slugs is what I want to collect. I want to collect these because I'm going to test for them later. And we'll do baseball article slugs. And so, this will be a cruise article. This will be a baseball article. Two of my favorite things, cruising and baseball. If there's a baseball cruise, oh my goodness, it would blow my mind. There probably is one. Like Hall of Fame cruise or something like that. Or there's a few baseball Hall of Famers on the cruise that are hanging out or taking Q&As. That'd be pretty awesome. There's not really, you can't really play baseball on a cruise ship though. You can play basketball and hockey and stuff, but you can't really play baseball or football for that matter. Anyway, I digress. Cruising article slugs. We're going to add cruise article dot slug. And same thing for baseball article slugs. Add baseball article dot slug. Just kind of holding these in memory. I think I'm going to need them later. I'm going to pass off a request. So I need a build request. And I don't care about the username. I do care about the filter. Okay. And in this case, I'm going to say filter.tag. I'm going to filter to just baseball. Okay, I want to assert that, first of all, that status is okay. Data result status, nope. Data result status, not okay, yep. What? Data result status, yeah, is equal to Data result status dot okay. Did I type something wrong? All right. Now, assert that the ones being returned, that results dot data result, all of them have a tag list that contains baseball. True. And all of them do not contain cruising. Whoa. I don't know if that's a good test or not, but let's try it. Okay, it passes, so I think that's a good test. I don't know. It's creating 40 articles at sort of striped date time. And then it's grabbing the latest 20 that are just tagged with a certain one. So that stripe is going to collapse into half. So I think this is a valid test. I like it. Okay, so I got to keep going like this. Got to write more tests on the filters to make sure that they are all good. But we've made really good progress on this endpoint. I think, I haven't tried it in the web yet, but I think it's actually going to be functional. Just need to write a bunch of tests to make sure. And I'll write some functional tests as well. Don't need to be nearly as involved as these, but I'll write a few. Anyway, I want to thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate it. I hope that you all join me in a nice raid over to someone on the
Bada bing, bada boom.
On the Twitch Live Coders team. Jimothy Hendricks, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Couchbase, my employer's offline, so we're going to go to Live Coders and see if anyone's over there that could use a raid. Looks like it's just Tomcat, so that's who we're raiding. I hope you'll join me over there. Wish Tomcat a happy Friday, and I wish all of you a happy Friday, happy weekend as well. Looks like there's a talking cat doing some add-ons for WoW, so that sounds kind of interesting. So we'll see you over there, and thank you very much for watching.